clear. Go.
Morgan Blackhand, rated as the #1 solo professional in the business by the Solo of Fortune annual 2020 awards. He was widely considered to be one of the most dangerous individuals in Mike Pondsmith's Cyberpunk universe. In Cyberpunk 2077, Morgan Blackhand alongside Johnny Silverhand and Saburo Arasaka were options for V's childhood hero in the gameplay demo. So, who is this mysterious Solo of Fortune? A war-worn veteran of the Second Central American conflict, Morgan Blackhand, sometimes known as the Hammer, first became a solo by accident, not design. Returning home in 2008 to the ruins of his native Brooklyn, he found himself protecting his next-door neighbour from an abusive and violent ex-husband. The incident ended with Morgan killing the homicidal maniac and earning a local rep on the streets as a protector of the weak. Morgan's good guy image lasted until a dust-down with a marauding booster gang leader, which brought him to the attention of a Militech recruiter. Morgan dealt with the booster with relative ease, and thus was made an offer to join Militech. To Morgan's pragmatic mind, working as a corporate solo wasn't much different than being in the army. The guys upstairs told you where to go and who to protect or shoot. By 2013, Blackhand was known throughout the Brotherhood of Solos as a professional equal to the best Europe could offer. In time, Blackhand graduated from being a bodyguard and performing extraction work to tactical operations and strategic threat management. Although his abilities in these areas were exceptional, his reputation as a hard-nosed, no-nonsense boss willing to do what is necessary and join his ops in the field earned him an even wider reputation. Still, the solo's solo, with no hint of stopping now, Morgan is regarded as the #1 in the business. The entire profession was improved by the release of the Enforcer's Handbook, with over 1 million copies audited to date, and something that may even be referenced in Cyberpunk 2077. It is obvious through Morgan may have taught many professionals all they know. It is not all that the Master knows. Morgan's handling of incidents like the attempted kidnapping of former Samurai Band member Kerry Uridine show the touch of the true Master. It is interesting to note that all 5 of the kidnappers were captured by Morgan and turned over to the federal authorities. They were bruised, battered and beaten, but alive. Any solo can kill, but only a Master like Blackhand can eliminate a threat and embarrass the group's sponsors. Still, embarrassing a huge company like DMS can't make it any easier on your career. There is also Blackhand's Street Weapons Guide, the definitive book on weaponry in Cyberpunk 2020, but it offers no additional insights into the character. Morgan is known as a competent martial artist, having expertise in Aikido and Taekwondo. Even though he had some of the highest stats in the game, these were described only as estimates, as no agency has been able to precisely quantify him. Mike Pondsmith has described Morgan Blackhand as a mixture of Clint Eastwood, John Wayne, and more recently suggested that John Wick would be a perfect analogue for the solo. Just for the record, that's John Wick from the first movie. He's honest to a fault, has a long memory, and never ever harms women and children, but he will make an exception for female solos. He's described as huge, swarthy, with greying hair and pale, cynical blue eyes. His voice is a whispery, gravelly rasp, menacing but sometimes friendly. His trademark look is all black, slacks, turtleneck, or a 3-piece tactical suit including his trademark armoured trench coat. Pondsmith views Morgan Blackhand as his archetypical solo character. He is not alive because he's the best around, rather he is the best because he's alive. Seems simple enough. Even though Mike wrote the rules for Cyberpunk 2020, he doesn't have to bend them to play Morgan. He just plays him smarter, as though it was his own personal character, who he has nurtured for years and does not want to lose. In the Cyber Generation timeline, which for the record is a different chronology from the one Cyberpunk Red and Cyberpunk 2077 shall follow, Morgan decided he could use a vacation in Night City. He is described as a 52-year-old solo, a stylish professional who's worked for dozens of corporations as a hired gun and enforcer. Well educated, he deliberately cultivates a rough, streetwise demeanour based on his tough childhood in New York. For many years, Morgan worked as a freelance solo, doing hits on assigned targets, extracting corporate personnel, and leading Black Ops teams. In 2020, he resigned from Militech and began freelancing, taking only the jobs that interested him. His choices ranged from the profitable, such as his extraction of a multi-million-dollar rocker, Alana Devon, from DMS to Fujitsu World Entertainment, to the quixotic, and many an out-of-luck victim threatened by a corporate ops team, booster gangs, or street rats, suddenly found themselves with a large, very dangerous benefactor who saved their ass and then slipped silently into the night. To Morgan's worldview, it was only payback for the various Black Ops and assassinations he'd run over a long and checkered career. Then came the Carbon Plague and the advent of the Incorporated States of America. At first, Morgan was suspicious of the ICE's grandiose plans for revitalizing America. He'd freelanced previously for some of those involved in ICE, so knew firsthand what sort of street rats they could be. Blackhand carefully began to plan a backdoor for himself, moving his considerable fortune in investments offshore to free Trinidad and other unaligned nations. On May 15th, 2027, CorpSec director Vincent Matthew approached Morgan to run the ICE's new agent corps, an elite cadre of CorpSec solos acting as the new government's internal security arm. Morgan's response, "I don't take money to hunt down a bunch of kids," was typical, as with the ICE's retort, a pre-dawn assault on the Solo's Night City penthouse suite. The raid cost the ICE an entire 5-man ops team. Morgan fell back to his safe house in Pacifica and waited. 2 nights later, he eliminated a 10-man ops team and disappeared into the smog-choked, wreckage-strewn night. 10 days later, Morgan Blackhand walked into the Washington Bureau offices of CorpSec. Entering the offices of the director, he calmly killed Matthau, his second-in-command, and the 8-man security detail hastily dispatched to stop him. His point made, Blackhand left the building and escaped to Washington before CorpSec could begin to mount any effective pursuit. By the time Alt Cunningham located Morgan to recruit him into the cyber revolution, he was safely established in his offshore Trinidad fortress, deep within a web of security remotes and fanatically loyal ex-Militech solos who had followed their leader into retirement. Going back to the timeline relevant to Cyberpunk Red and Cyberpunk 2077, during the Fourth Corporate War between Arasaka and Militech, despite having many covert operatives in-house and Lazarus Group options, Militech came to the conclusion that their ties to the US government were so tight that the rest of the world might see Militech as a deniable extension of US policy. Militech therefore put together a covert operations team which would have a certain deniability of its own. They therefore coaxed Morgan Blackhand into the fray, who cost about the equivalent of 3 normal covert teams put together. During this war, Morgan was described as the most famous living soldier of the 21st century, having completed hundreds of ops with flying colours. He got enough funding out of Militech to subcontract a group of highly skilled and motivated freelancers, making them answerable to him only. Blackhand's covert ops technique is to delegate duties to mission-compatible pairs. These mini-teams each complete their part of a mission individually, with communications depending on code words and burst transmissions. Blackhand works independently, joining mini-teams when he's needed most. Perhaps the most notable individual in Blackhand's Strike Omega team included Mike M&M McRae, a medtech who was the field medic who amputated the shattered stump of Blackhand's right arm back in 2009. He went on to medical studies when he returned to the States, but Blackhand never forgot him. When Militech needed a good combat medic, who could hold his own in a covert situation, Blackhand tapped Eminem for the job. Militech also benefited from Morgan's network of connections, as alongside Alt Cunningham, they were able to convince Rash Bartmoss not to attack Militech and to assist them in finding Soulkiller. Morgan Blackhand's main rival was Adam Smasher, the combat cyborg. Adam saw Morgan as a threat to his metal is better than meat philosophy. Adam repeatedly tried to challenge him to a face-off, but Morgan simply ignored him. And naturally, this snubbing stoked the cyborg's psychopathic rage further. The two finally met during the final moments of the Fourth Corporate War. After successfully planting the nuclear demolition charge in the Arasaka Tower of Night City, Morgan Blackhand's Omega team began evacuating from the Arasaka Tower rooftop, only for Adam Smasher to confront him. While the building begins to shake from the detonation of the nuclear demolition charge, the two launch themselves at each other in a last, desperate attempt to kill their nemesis. The outcome of the duel was, for many years, unknown, although many initially thought this was the end of Morgan Blackhand. When he appeared as an option for the childhood hero, it created speculation as to how this legendary solo would fit within CD Projekt Red's narrative. And Mike Pondsmith has now confirmed Morgan does indeed survive the encounter with Adam Smasher and will be coming back for Cyberpunk Red. Furthermore, both Mike and CDPR confirmed that the timeline from 2020 to Red to 2077 are now the same. Perhaps this means that Morgan Blackhand still has unfinished business to take care of in Night City. Hey Chumba, I'm Kazuliski, and I hope you found this Cyberpunk 2077 discussion on Morgan Blackhand, the Solo of Fortune, to be informative. Are you interested in more Cyberpunk 2077 content? Then be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you have any questions or feedback, please let me know in the comment section. Thank you for watching.
True to the promise made in 2013, it's still coming when it's ready.